Hello and welcome to the screencast on arithmetic with functions. Just as we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers, we can also add, subtract, multiply, and divide functions to create a new function from two or more given functions. So let's look at the definition of arithmetic with functions. Let f and g be functions that share the same domain. So we'll want to keep in mind that the domain is important. Then the sum of f and g is the function f plus g, and it's defined by f plus g of x equals f of x plus g of x. The difference of f and g is the function f minus g, which is defined by f minus g of x equals f of x minus g of x. The product of f and g is the function f times g, defined by f times g of x equals f of x times g of x. And lastly, the quotient of f and g is the function f divided by g, defined by f divided by g of x equals f of x divided by g of x. And here we have a fraction, so we want to remember this is only going to be true for all x such that g of x, the denominator, does not equal 0. So let's look at these definitions in action. Consider the function p in blue and q in red, graphed below. Determine the exact value of each of the following quantities or explain why they are not defined. So p plus q of 1, we know that's going to equal p of 1 plus q of 1. And if we look at our graph, p of 1 is equal to negative 1. We choose that closed circle. And q of 1 is equal to 3. So our sum of p plus q of 1 equals 2. Next, we have q minus p of 0. We know that is q of 0 minus p of 0. Q of 0 is equal to 2. And P of 0, well, that appears to be negative 2.5, but the directions did say we needed to find the exact value, so we don't want to leave that to chance. We want to go ahead and find the equation of that piece of P. So we notice it has a slope of 3/2, and it goes through the point 1, negative 1. So in point slope form, we would have y plus 1 equals 3/2 times x minus 1. And we're trying to find p of 0, so we would let x equal 0. And I will let you verify that, but you will, in fact, get negative 2.5. So we were right in estimating that that was 2.5, but we wanted to double check. So we have 2 minus p of 0, which was negative 2.5. So this becomes positive 4.5. The difference q minus p of 0 equals 4.5. All right. Last for this slide, we have p times q equals negative 1. So p of negative 1 times q of negative 1. And we see that p of negative 1 is negative 1. And q of negative 1 is 3. So the product, p times q of negative 1, will equal negative 3. All right, let's look at two more, slightly more complicated applications of arithmetic with functions. We still have function p and q, and now we want to find for what values of x is p divided by q of x undefined and why. So we really have two reasons why p divided by q of x could be undefined. The first has to do with the domain. So if p of x or q of x is undefined, then this quotient will also be undefined. And so we notice that right here, q of x is undefined when x equals -2. And we also notice that p of x is undefined when x equals +2. Everywhere else, p and q are defined. The other reason that this quotient, p divided by q of x, is undefined would be if the denominator equals 0. So q of x is equal to 0 at x equals -3, and q of x is also equal to 0 at x equals 2, which we already stated x equals 2 is also where p of x is undefined, but we have found all x values where this quotient is undefined, and that was either where p or q were undefined or where q of x, the denominator specifically, equaled 0. All right, so lastly, we want to find for what values of x is p times q of x equal to 0. Well, we know we have a product, p of x times q of x equal to 0. And we also know that if the product of two quantities equals 0, then one of those quantities, either p of x or q of x, must equal 0. So our candidates for where this product equals 0 would be where p of x equals 0, which is at x equals -2. But you notice q is undefined there, right? But q of -2 is undefined. So x equals -2 is actually not going to be one of our answers. And that is the only x value where p of x equaled 0. So then we move on and look where q of x equaled 0. Q of x equals 0 at -3. And p of x is defined there. So we know that's going to be one of our x values where the product equals 0. And then the other place where q of x equals 0 is at x equals 2. But at x equals 2, p of x is undefined. So p of 2 is undefined. That means that x equals 2 would not make the product p times q of x equal to 0. So our only answer for part E is x equals -3.